first off, we will be having Calvin Hansell. All right. So Calvin brings over a decade of dynamic experience in education, sports, coaching, and teaching. And now he's an educational psychologist, driven by a deep passion for mental and sports performance and helping individuals thrive. His work focuses on creating meaningful change through assessments, psychotherapy, and career counseling, specializing in supporting children, adolescents, and entire families. Calvin believes every individual can achieve their best when equipped with the right tools. He utilizes empathetic care and evidence-based interventions to foster resilience, identify strengths, and address challenges, aiming to create collaborative and empowering experiences that make a lasting impact on personal and academic growth. So, for our first round, please, a lovely warm welcome for Calvin.
Thanks, Ted, for the lovely introduction. And Shannon, thank you as well for inviting me to such a lovely occasion, to be able to network, connect with new people, with wonderful education leaders. I've already met some of the education leaders working at Genius, and wow, like what a great initiative and company you have going here. So I've been asked to speak about my journey, a little bit about who I am. I think if you had to tell 18-year-old me that I'd be standing right here, he'd be shocked. Kind of in education, well, the journey that I've gone through. So I think maybe let's start when I matriculated 2013 from KES. I've played a bit of rugby, played first team rugby. And I suppose that every teenage boy playing rugby, you're rugby obsessed and like you want to be a Springbok and like see as your man kind of thing. And yeah, and then by the end of matric, I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing with my life. And it wasn't until the end of the rugby season where I got offered a bursary to go play rugby at UJ. So I was very fortunate. I thought, okay, this is my next kind of big step, big break, maybe an opportunity to play varsity cup. Hopefully maybe get into some provincial setup, but the most I got was a bit of varsity cup young guns, which was great. But at the same time, managing studies, I studied, I think this is an important point to mention, I studied sports psychology at the time, which I thought, cool, this is going to be so great. I've heard so much about this, and it's like perfectly aligns with myself, my own personality, my sporting background, and like the future's looking great. And then you kind of get to the end of your undergrad and you realize, oh, I'm very limited to what I can actually do here. And I think with most psych degrees, you get to the end of your psych degree and you think, okay, well, what next? Now I have to do postgrad, I have to do honors, and then get to the end of honors. Okay, I'm still kind of limited. There are some options available to me, but now I have to do masters. So all while after I'd finished my undergrad, I was coaching sport at St. David's Marisananda in Sandton, and I was thankful enough to have an English teacher who taught me at KES. He was the head of St. David's Prep. By the time my degree finished, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just had no idea where I wanted to go, like career-wise. He came to me with an opportunity to do an internship at the high school. At the same time do my PGCE. That took me, I think, 1 or 2 years to complete with a rugby injury on the side, playing rugby for Pirates. I actually dislocated my hip, which there's also a couple of life lessons in that. And then during COVID, came back and still played rugby, so some resilience for you there. Then did my PGCE, taught a little bit of history, taught geography. Basically, St. David's backed me all the way. They supported me and just allowed me to kind of go on this growth career journey within education. So I was teaching. I was also coaching rugby, obviously with my rugby background. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this rugby coaching thing. And then after a while, coached a couple of A teams for a few years, got into like the kind of second team, first team rugby setup. Also getting my HOD in geography was quite impressed with me in the classroom, and he had kind of hopes or prospects for me to one day become HOD. I was like, okay, cool, this is great. Like rugby space is working out well, teaching space is working out well, but I wasn't fulfilled. I had my undergrad in sports psych. I wanted more, and my whole thing is about potential, exceeding your potential, and always just trying to do as much as you can, as best as you can. So I kind of hit a fork in the road. And I thought, let me pursue this psychology thing and just see what are the options available to me. And then I applied for my honours in Ed Psych. Did that during COVID, just probably the easiest honours I could ever do. I'm sure for most of you who did 1 year in varsity or school or whatever during COVID, it was chips. It was very easy. But at the same time, like it was meaningful, and it allowed me to get to, I suppose, the next step of where I wanted to go. And after honours, I said, okay, do I go the B-Psych equivalent, to be a registered counsellor? There were some options available, and I thought, no, I want to kind of go the full length and full tilt of what I actually am capable of. So then my lecturer in my honours year convinced me to apply for masters. And I think those of you who have gone through masters applications for any category of psychology will know how difficult it can be, how brutal it can be with the application process, the interviews, everything you have to submit, and it can be challenging. And I was fortunate or say lucky enough to get in first time. And I do think it's just because I was a young male, and there's not a lot of young males in the educational psychology field. And in our class, in our master's year, there was only about 25 people anyway, and I think in that probably about 4 or 5 males. So I think it says a lot. Don't think Ed Psych specifically has to be narrowed down to only females. I think there's a lot more males that are seeking avenues from a psychology perspective, and I think the Ed Psych route is a really, really valuable tool or navigation or into being able to offer kind of psychological support. So anyway, I did my master's, all the while still teaching at St. David's, still coaching a little bit, but my role and my identity kind of within the school space had changed quite a bit and evolved. I had to take the teacher's hat off and now put on the psychology hat, and my perception of the boys towards me and the teachers towards me also had changed quite a bit. So that was quite tricky to navigate through. But the school backed me. Even so, at the last minute, when I completed my master's and had to now start pushing and looking for internship opportunities, but I was fortunate enough to have a good relationship with my school that they basically created an internship opportunity for me. Which came with a lot of hours, a lot of tick boxes, a lot of long hours, paperwork, and obviously psychosocial support, whether it be therapy, whether it be assessment, career guidance counseling and assessment. There's a lot. So you really got a lot to cover there. Then last year, I think October, wrote my board exam, which I was very nervous for. I think anyone who gets to that level and has to write a board level exam, whether it be for Clin Psych, Ed Psych, registered counselling, whatever the case, it's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, because that's your future. Otherwise, if you don't pass, you go a whole another year having to do more internship and hopefully write the next board exam. Thankfully, passed that first time as well with the distinction, so I'm very proud of that. And then the school, I think, without hesitation, offered me a full-time position as an educational psychologist at St. David's. All the while, I think last year during my internship, I still kind of was tapping into, the sports psychology, mental performance aspect of things, because I think that's where my passion is, and that's where my inspiration and motivation for working with youngsters and young athletes really pushes me to offer that support. So this year, as an full-time Ed Psych, it's been my primary role has been play therapy, literally doing play therapy with little noughts, double noughts, right up until helping grade 11s, 12s get into university, Ivy League universities. It's been such a broad range and scope of the services that I've been able to offer, which is great, and it's exposed me to the field within Ed Psych, and I suppose within education itself. But it helped me that also having exposure to broad range of kind of services and working with little ones, working with adolescents, and dealing with parents and dealing with families has helped me understand, okay, what I actually want to specialize in. And it's actually sports psychology. So, yeah, this year's been a bit of a, not a roller coaster for me, but it's been eye-opening for me. And I think from April, I got an opportunity to meet and sit down with my headmaster, former headmaster at KES. And he asked me to put a proposal together. They were looking for an ed psych to go and kind of build a wellness department, but like with an ed psych, and build their counseling and assessment unit. The biggest need for them is they're getting a lot of kids in grade 11 and grade 12 saying they need help, they need support, they need extra time. And let's try to screen these learners earlier to try to pick up any learning barriers and whatever. But it also gives me the opportunity. I mean, if you know KES, it's got a huge sporting background. Like currently ranked number 1 in sports, like all over South Africa. So that's a good base for me to be able to pursue my private practice on the side as well, which I started this year. So effectively this year I was working two jobs, being at St. David's and then part-time private practice on the side. So that gave me that exposure and understanding, like, do I want to go full-time private practice? So yeah, I think come January 2026, I'll be starting a new job at KES after being at St. David's for about 12 years. From coaching sport, I'm only 30 though. From coaching sports to teaching to managing golf, which is also one of my other passions. Managing the golf, and then obviously in the last few years transitioning into the academic support to the ed psych, and working thankfully in a team of 3 other ed psychs and a social worker. So St. David's are quite blessed and fortunate to have the colleagues that we do. But yeah, I'll be starting. I've got 1 week left, counting down the days. I've got 1 week left at St. David's, and then I'll be starting at KES next year. Fresh start, new challenge, new opportunity, and yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to it. I already met a former KES boy who was one of my grade 8s, that I didn't realize. It makes you realize how fast time flies, like, and I think within that time, just realizing how lucky I have been, how fortunate I have been, but at the same time, like, I always I like to think of Gary Player, the more you practice, the luckier you get, right? And to me, like in adulting, your practice is like the amount of hard work you put in, the amount of sacrifices you make, also the support that you have backing you, but also the opportunities that come falling on your lap, right? Like you got to grab them and make the most of them. So I think to close off, I've been very, very lucky, very fortunate, but at the same time, the opportunities that I've had presented to me, I've certainly made the most of, and I think that's my imparting words with you is whatever opportunity comes your way, network, grind, work hard, meet the right people. Like this event specifically, networking. Like I think maybe my last parting words is life's not always about what you know, it's who you know, right? And I've known a lot of people. If I didn't have that grade 10 English teacher teaching me, he wouldn't have got me that coaching job, and things just unfold and develop the way that they're supposed to, and things always land up the way they're supposed to. So yeah, thank you so much for having me again, and it's been a pleasure to be able to share my journey and share my experience, and yeah, hopefully you take 1 or 2 things away.